I see no public out there for public comment on closed session.
Well, we have to approve the agenda first, but I would like to
I'm
ask
sorry.
that we move item 4 before item 2 and 3.
I don't have any problem with that, except that people who are coming for 4 may not be here.
I mean, they should be here at 6 o'clock. I mean, that's what time the meeting starts.
I know the planner's upstairs already. I saw him.
I don't have any problem
I believe
with
Daryl
it.
Witten's coming over for the developer, and our consultant planner, I believe, is here.
Okay.
So Lindsay, make a motion with that change?
I motion with that amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Approval of agenda.
Do we,
Waiting on him to change the slide. Approval of agenda. Okay, there you go. Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
okay, we will go into closed session. Okay. We're going to start. Okay, we're going to open this up from closed session. And Justin, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Heavenly Father, please be with us tonight as we address numerous issues facing our community. Please give us all the guidance and the wisdom to address those issues to the best of our abilities. And we thank you for all the many blessings that our town has received of late, especially in lieu of our disaster with the earthquake. We are to be thankful for so many things, and thankful we weren't leveled, and thankful that we didn't have any deaths except for one, and that was not in our community. So we want to thank you for those things that you've done. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Okay, Lloyd is going to speak on the attorney's report and make an announcement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City Council met in closed session on one item described on the agenda, received reports from council, and gave direction, and no final action was taken. So now public comment, and I will make the announcement. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Under the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on an item that does not appear on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The entire public comment section will be limited to a total of 1 hour. We ask speakers to provide their names. We also really appreciate it when speakers move into position before the previous speaker is finished, so that we're respectful of everyone's time and not waiting for people to get up to the podium. And we remind the public that this is an opportunity to speak to the City Council as a group. And it is not a time for question and answer or for directing comments to one individual. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we will come to public comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak under public comment?
Evening, Council. My name is Good evening, Council. I can't hear myself. I guess. I don't think he's got the mic on. No, testing. Is it over here? Yeah. Can you hear me now? Oh, yeah, I can hear me now. Hi, good evening, Council. My name is Scott Miller. I'm a resident here of Ridgecrest. As you may, sure you know that school has started here in Ridgecrest. Yesterday I was talking to my daughter. She was talking to me about all the tumbleweeds and everything that are overgrown the sidewalk heading towards Burroughs down French. And I said, I said, why don't you mention that to City Council? And this is the part that troubled me, is she said, Dad, I'm not going to do that. I said, why is that? She goes, I see what's happened when adults talk in City Council and how they're treated. Imagine how they'd treat a kid. I was shocked, stunned, and taken back by that, to say the least. So I brought this to someone else's attention, and they had some really good ideas. Perhaps somebody over at Burroughs, we can challenge the football team at Burroughs or some of the clubs to go through and knock down those tumbleweeds so the kids walking down French don't have to be concerned about snakes, lizards, other creatures that like to live underneath tumbleweeds. That can be a scary thing for kids. My daughter's a junior. She's not a tiny little kid, but all kids go down French to go to school. And I don't know if she's here or not, but the kids are using the bike lanes, and people aren't able to walk on the sidewalks, so kids are then forced to walk in the bike lanes. From a safety standpoint, I'm not sure if that's something council could handle, and I realize that this is not a question and answer, it's more of a comment. And with that, I can't come up here without saying that, remember, we have an open, active MSA, and hopefully we will remember that. And with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Dave Matthews, my address is on file. I didn't quite hear what the gentleman's daughter said, as his voice dropped out as I was coming up behind him. But I'll catch it on the video, hopefully. I just would like to have the council and the whole city mark the last Sunday of September on your calendars. I think it's the 29th we figured out. The parish of St. Anne's is having a carnival, and it's open to everyone, not just parishioners, but everyone. And there will be drawings, prizes, giveaways, raffles, food, games for kids and adults, and all kinds of stuff that go along with carnivals. So we invite you to come out and enjoy yourselves and help us keep our parish and school in functioning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sarah Warsan, and I have some comments about the proposed new movie theater at China Lake and Raider.
It's an agenda item, and you can make that comment. It'll be right after this.
Excuse me. If I came to these meetings more often, I would know that.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's how we can help you, because what it says,
Right, okay.
items not on the agenda are for public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any others? Okay, then we will go to the next item, which is council announcements. Anyone in the council has announcements? Nobody? Okay, I have one. I would like to read a letter that I received from the Kern Community College District. On behalf of the Kern County Community College District of Trustees and the Saracosa Community College, we sincerely thank you and the staff of the City of Ridgecrest for your emergency assistance in the recent Ridgecrest earthquake and getting Saracosa Community College back up and running to meet the needs of our students and community. We particularly commend the efforts of Public Works Director Bart Lauer, Assistant Director City Engineer Lauren Culp, Engineer Michael Winters, and Chief of Police Jed McLaughlin. Our emergency response team is grateful for the assistance provided by the city as they work to get the college open, ensuring the college facility will be safe for occupancy. So it's signed by Thomas Burke, Chancellor, and I called and spoke to him yesterday and thanked him, and he said, can you also thank the entire community, because it wasn't just the efforts of all of these named people, but everybody. So On his behalf, I offer again his thanks to you all. Is there any other council announcements?
We do have a family movie night coming up here in Freedom Park on Saturday, September 14th at 7:45, and it will be Incredibles 2, and it's sponsored by Desert Valley Credit Union. So,
Any others? Okay, then we will go to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by city staff and will be approved in one motion if no member of the council or the public wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment is desired by anyone, that item may be removed from the consent calendar and be considered separately with public comment before action is taken. I'm going to read proposed action 1, to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority regular meeting dated August 7th, 2019. And does anyone wish to have that item pulled? Okay, I see none. Motion?
I so move.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item, we're going to move item number 4, the public hearing, up to that. So if we can move the agenda, it's already there. Public hearing regarding the introduction and first reading of ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest approving a development agreement between the city and G&L Channel Lake LLC. And this is, Sarah, this is the item that I was telling you about, that if you wanted to speak to at the time to make comments, this is that item.
Not
yet.
No, when we come to that, after they explain it, if you still have questions or comments. I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear.
For your benefit, we have the applicant make their presentation, and then we ask questions, then we let the public come up and present, so just so you're aware.
Gary, do you have the clicker for the? He doesn't have it either. Nope.
Sorry.
do you want to just click it for us? So next.
Well, then we'll ask you to just identify when you'd like the next slide. Okay, Heather?
Yes.
Thank you. So you ready for the next slide?
He needs just a minute.
Okay.
And I didn't see it. I don't know if it's on the floor.
I don't know what happened to it. That's not good.
Sorry, everybody, holding you up, but it's necessary in order to do the slides. I hope we have an alternate clicker.
Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Clicker.
Mr. Amon, you know anything about that?
It is not in my pocket.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I want to introduce you to Ahsoka Harris. He is our consultant planner, and he'll be presenting the staff report.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, item before you tonight is a development agreement between the city and GNL China Lake LLC. The project, next please. The project is located at the southeast corner of China Lake Boulevard and Reed Avenue, as you can see on your slides. Walmart is to the south, and there's commercial to the north and west, and existing residential along the eastern property line of the property. And the property is 17.34 acres. The agreement is to allow 10 years to develop the property, and the 10 years will start from the application for a building permit for phase 1. And in addition to that, agreement allows the applicant to apply for extension of time and also allow the city manager to advance or make necessary amendments to allow additional time within the time frame of 10 years.
Is that on slide? You need to tell him next slide.
Okay,
so he
next,
knows
please.
when.
Okay, I'll speak to the mic. I'm sorry.
Go back.
The development agreement was submitted to the city along with several other applications, and the remaining applications included a site plan review, a variance, and a parcel map to subdivide the property. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on July 23rd, and no public were in attendance for that item by the Planning Commission. The Commission was concerned for not having a time period to complete or start the construction of phase 1. Therefore, Commission, with the concurrence of the applicant, is recommending that the City Council add a time of 3 years to submit plans for phase 1. So that will be within the time period that will be included in the agreement. The 3-year time period comes in because the city ordinance allows only 18 months once the site plan is approved to submit plans. And this amendment will allow them to get 3 years to submit plans for phase 1. Once a plan is submitted to the city, then the development agreement comes in and allows 10 years to complete the entire project, phase 1 and phase 2.
Can I ask a question? So you stated that no public was there. Were notices sent out to the neighbors?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will get to that in a minute.
Thank you.
Next.
I'm sorry, so you said 10 years to complete the whole project, both the phases, and the Planning Commission approved that?
The Planning Commission can only approve the site plan, the tentative parcel map, and the variance. The time periods are in the development agreement, which is before you tonight. And the City Council is the authority to approve or deny the development agreement. Planning Commission can only make a recommendation to the City Council.
And during that Planning Commission, I was at that Planning Commission, and there was a great deal of discussion about putting the time period in the phases.
That's correct.
So.
Yes.
And I'd like to add to that, too, because I was at that same... it's on, but... Okay, so I just wanted to add to that because in that meeting with the Planning Commission and when you were discussing the 3 years, am I correct in that there's the opportunity to start before that 3-year period? Or that's how I interpreted it, that we put the 3 years there, but you could start sooner.
The entire project is driven by this agreement, development agreement. Once, if the city council approves the development agreement, authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement, and the date that the city manager signs the agreement, that's the date the entire project will start. So there's a 3-year time period from that date.
Yeah, they have to pull their building permits within the first 3 years.
Right.
Okay.
But the 3 years is a part of the 10 years?
Correct. So they have to pull their building permit for phase 1 within 3 years, and they have to pull their building permit for phase 2 within the 10 years starting on the date that the agreement is signed.
May I clarify? So the 3 years, the 36 months, is for the developer to submit complete applications for building permits. The reason that we don't have the timing be for pulling the building permit is because that then puts the pressure on the city. The developer could then submit their building permit applications a week before the deadline, and then all of a sudden it's on the city to suddenly jump and rush and overlook things. So the time clock is for the developer to submit complete application. That means they can't just submit something and correct it later. It's got to be good at 3 years.
Next slide, please. The development agreement is a part of the entire project, which included the development agreement, a parcel map to subdivide the property, a site plan review to improve the property or develop the property, and a variance for parking. The Planning Commission, subject to your approval of the development agreement, approved the parcel map, the site plan, and the variance. So what's before you tonight is only the development agreement that's based on the municipal code and the zoning ordinance. The staff prepared an initial study for the entire project, including all 4 parts of the project, and circulated that initial study through the state clearinghouse for 30-day review. No comments received during the 30-day review period. However, staff received an email from the Department of Fish and Wildlife stating that they are concerned that some special species that are protected from by the state, the Fish and Wildlife ordinances and whatnot, moved into the site that will take that will require a take permit. And as required under the CEQA, the staff responded to that comment, stating that the parcel is surrounded by development and highly unlikely that any species will move into the site before the construction started. In any case, there is a condition requiring to comply with any requirements of the Fish and Wildlife Services. With that letter submitted to them, so we allowed 10 days before having the public hearing by the Planning Commission. And after we prepared the initial study, we found out that the project will not have a significant impact on the environment. Therefore, we prepared a negative declaration for the entire project. Planning Commission approved the negative declaration for the site plan review, parcel map, and the variance portion of the project. And you have the same negative declaration before you tonight. If you approve the development agreement, then you need to adopt the negative declaration. And that concludes our presentation, and we are available for any questions.
Is there any questions from council?
May I just remind the council that this is the first reading of an ordinance.
Right.
So it's not the final approval of the project.
Right.
I had some citizens express concern to me that live in the neighborhood to the east, and their concerns were the wall, and that they were planning on using basically the wall that is their backyard wall for the development, and that they felt like, an additional wall needed to be built just to kind of put more of a barrier between their home and then the development. And I saw in there under, I think it was on, what page was that? On page 12, that was discussed in the conditions, and that they were going to ask about the grading plan, and that there was concerns about building a wall, and that there'd be a space in between the two walls, and just how are we going to address those concerns from the neighborhood?
The wall condition is specifically addressing the site plan review, the staff report for the Planning Commission. I believe city engineer may explain this. I believe the existing wall is on the residential property owner's side,
right,
and it's vary between 5 and 5.5. We have conditioned the project to do the grading for the commercial property to keep the existing wall height as is, as much as possible. And that will avoid building a second wall and creating a no man's land between the two walls. And it is already conditioned under the site plan review that was approved by the Planning Commission to protect the wall in place as is.
Yeah, I guess it kind of read as it was more open-ended to me, because it said that they're going to be grading and that they didn't know if that would affect the wall, the base of the wall. But I do know that they expressed concerns, the people who live along there, and one of them had told me that she had not been notified. And so that's why I asked the question about were notices sent out to the neighbors of that property. But I know, like, I would have concerns about only a 5-foot wall separating between me and a huge development. And so is there anything that we can do for them?
Unfortunately, no one has appealed the site plan review to the city council.
Okay.
So therefore, site plan review is not before you tonight.
Okay.
And the 10-day appeal period has expired since the approval of the project.
Okay.
And yes, we do have a condition requiring the applicant to prepare a grading plan in such a way that protect the integrity of the wall as well as the existing height. And so when the city engineer look at the grading plan, he will be looking for compliance with that condition.
Okay. Thank you.
Wallace, anything? Scott? Mike?
Any questions, Mike?
Okay. Some of the questions that I know are going to come up are whether this should even be here. This isn't part of this hearing, but I would like us to be able to discuss it at some point in time. I, too, have had numerous phone calls and 2 emails questioning why, as well as we've heard it in the community. So I would like to be able to reserve that right to ask those questions after we get through this part of that. Does anybody have any objections to that? Is it? Okay, all right. Well then, is there any public comment on this, what we've heard discussed so far?
Sarah Warsan, and I'm not an immediate neighbor of this project, but I do live at the base of College Heights Boulevard, and I'm in favor of this development, especially the 10-screen movie theater, a big movie buff. If this project can be accomplished without too much noise and dust, and that the parking entrance to the lot be designed so that the traffic doesn't become congested or dangerous in the area. The Walmart did both of those things, but I've seen lots of accidents pictured in the paper on the corner of China Lake and Upjohn and in that general area. And in addition, I think it's important that the new theater add to the selection of movies, not drive the Ridgecrest Cinemas out of business or threaten them. This December, the Ridgecrest Cinemas will celebrate 35 years of bringing entertainment to Ridgecrest, and during that time, they've served the more popular taste as well as making available films such as the Malcolm X biopic a few years ago, and more recently, a documentary about transgender soldiers in the military. Under Kelly Walden, they have featured throwback movies or repertory and costume contests and other fun and creative activities. As well, they have suffered significant damage from the earthquake, as we know, and were robbed. So I think it's critical to support them in their efforts to get back on their feet. But ultimately, I think the appetite for going out to the movies in this town is strong enough to support 2 cinemas, and this could be accomplished if both theaters cooperated on not duplicating their offerings. For example, the new chain could dedicate a few of its screens to independent films. Our community has in the past and would in the future patronize films that are not always in the mainstream. And together, both theaters could offer enough current film that perhaps we wouldn't have to go to Lancaster to see these films. In addition, I would like to add that anytime the City Council considers a development, I think it would be good for the different commissions to get together and see with those developers if they have a budget, an idea of how much water they would use, so a water budget, if you will, so that we can weigh and balance development in this town, which we need, and proper use of water, which we also need. So thank you for listening to my comments.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hi again, Council. Scott Miller, resident of Ridgecrest. I may be putting the cart way before the horse, and if so, I apologize in advance. Have we seen an artist rendition of what the project looks like? I was kind of expecting to see that. Is that setting up there, Lindsay?
We have a map.
It's in the packet.
Oh, okay. I was just
That's
looking for-
online. I don't know if they put it in their
Okay,
PowerPoint
so
or not, but
there is one available. So okay.
yes.
And I'm a little confused on dates. Did I understand it? We have 10 years to start building. However, they have 3 years to submit plans. However, there's also leniency in there to extend the 10-year program if they see fit. Is that what I understand?
They don't have 10 years to start building.
They have 3 years to start.
3 years.
3 years to start building.
Phase 1.
And I'm sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yes, they have 3 years to pull their building permit and begin phase 1.
Okay, so
And then they have up to 10 years to pull the building permit and begin phase 2. And there is the ability in the development agreement at the discretion of the city manager to make extensions that they feel, or that he or she will feel, that doesn't have a significant impact on the agreement, that doesn't require going back to council for approval. So there is the ability to do reasonable extensions if necessary.
and is there a number of extensions? I feel like I'm being a jerk.
It would just be reasonable.
So they could extend it 3 or 4 times if they wanted to?
City manager agreed.
It'd be up to the city manager. I mean, I would assume that they would be minor in nature, because the way the agreement is dictated, it wouldn't rise to the level that it would need to go to city council.
Okay. And I apologize for not knowing this in advance. I just was kind of expecting to see it on the overheads. So within 3 years, they pull permits and start construction within 3 years. Is this a mom and pop type construction, or I just saw someone shake their head? Is it Sony Studios type production. I'm sorry, building, not production.
It is a private developer that is developing the project, and whether or not they bring a name brand movie studio in, that's up to them.
Okay. And Councilperson Stevens just asked this question, but how far out were letters sent to the public? I know when liquor stores are built, they have...
Yeah, 300 foot.
Sorry, sir?
There's a 300-foot notice.
300 foot?
Out, yeah.
Okay.
That's in accordance to our municipal code.
Okay. And did the group meet with Quality of Life, or did they just go straight to Quality of Life? Did they meet with Quality of Life? They just went straight to the...
There is no need to go to Quality of Life on this. This is handled through the Planning Commission.
Okay. And then I guess part 3 question, what is the trigger for a business coming into Ridgecrest to come before council for approval? Is they can bring a hamburger stand in without approval, I guess.
Correct.
But
we have zoning, we have our ordinances, and you have the International Building Code, and they have what they call a ministerial right, which means is that if you want to come, if you own a piece of property and you want to build a structure, a business on that property that's properly zoned for that, if you build it within all of our requirements and our planning document, you can build it. We can't stop it.
I think he's asking about why did this one come to the council level, and that's because of the development agreement.
Yeah, if I may, development agreements are governed by state law. It's in the government code, and it requires a public hearing at the Planning Commission and approval by ordinance by the City Council.
So it was self-imposed by the builder? Is that what I'm hearing?
The builder, this did not have to come to the City Council if they did not have or request a development agreement. And really basically what the development agreement does, it locks in certain building rights.
Protections, if you will.
Protections. It makes the cost predictable because if they build phase 1, and let's say 2 years later they want to build phase 2, then they have what the current codes are today are locked in for that agreement. They don't have to have a development agreement to build this. All they have to do is build it within our zoning.
Within the parameters, and they can
within the parameters of our zoning, okay. They can build it. This is their right to do so.
And I will say that we did meet with them in Las Vegas at the ICSC convention. They were there trying to get businesses to go into the other pads on their site. So
they being
the developer was there trying to recruit companies to fill the other pads beside the movie theater.
Do we know if that was successful?
I know that they were meeting with a lot of the same people that we met with. So.
Okay.
Yeah, Scott's questions brought up a question for me. I'm not sure his answer. So they're proposing building this theater, but they do not at this time have an operating agreement with anybody to operate. It's a spec building. Is that correct?
Their intent is if they do not find it's no different than Ridgecrest Cinemas. They're not run by I don't know, whatever a name. Yeah, a name brand. They're private.
So they're going to run it themselves if they don't find someone to run it.
They haven't made that decision if they want to bring anybody in it. They may want to run it by themselves. No different than Ridgecrest Cinemas. That's a business decision on their part.
No different than our current movie theater, Ridgecrest Cinemas.
But they didn't have a development agreement.
Okay.
Sorry,
Scott, did you have more questions?
I guess just one last question. I see. Thank you for the draft. Have we seen an artist rendition of what the building looks like?
Yeah, that was in the packet too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, very well. Then I believe that I am done. Thank you very much.
I'd like to clarify. Thank you, Mr. Miller, because it's a question and maybe it was addressed and I missed it, but it goes in line with his questions, and I'd like to clarify it for myself and possibly for Mr. Miller. So is it normally in a development like this, what would be an average time period before they would have to start building on any other type of development?
Within 18 months.
Within 18 months. All right, so basically he's not asking for Is he asking for 3 years past the 18 months, or is it 3 years including the 18 months?
3 years including the 18 months.
3 years including, so he's not
Correct.
asking for 3 additional years.
No,
He's asking for another 18 months.
correct.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that. All right, so because my question, had it been the other way, would be, please explain the reasoning behind that length of delay. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for bringing those questions to the board.
Thank you, sir. We're glad you're here. We'd like to hear what you have to say.
My name is Darrell Whitten. I'm with Cornerstone Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the developer. Got a late start, so I didn't get here from the beginning of the hearing. But I just would like to request that the development agreement be approved. The developer is actively moving ahead with plans on the project, so he intends to pull permits soon. And a lot of the questions that have come up tonight were discussed at the Planning Commission. I can answer questions if they come up, but I understand the primary purpose of this hearing is about the development agreement, and so I'm here to answer questions on behalf of the developer if there are any. There are renditions of there are architectural elevations of the proposed buildings in the packet that went to Planning Commission, and I believe it's also in the agenda packet. It's going to be a great development. The guy that's doing, I've worked with a lot of developers over the years. The guy that's doing this is first class, and he wants to do a great entertainment venue. And the theater is being designed by an architectural group, I believe out of Dallas, Texas, that specializes in nothing but movie theaters and entertainment centers. So this is going to be a unique facility, and I think the city is going to be pleased with it. So I'm here to answer any questions if they come up, but I'll take a seat.
Okay, thank you. Is there any, before he sits down, any for Darrell?
I know when we met with him over in Las Vegas, he had discussed that it might include an arcade, and it would be more of like the recliner chairs, that sort of movie theater with a restaurant. And is that still the plan?
That's still what he's planning,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
I might recommend that this is the first reading. How many are we going to have?
This is the
Two.
first of two.
Two. I would just recommend, sir, normally when we get these things to get, it's exciting and welcome, and thank you for bringing this to the city. It'd be nice to get people excited if you had 5 slides, because, that the architectural drawing, which Mr. Miller had mentioned, I'd like to see it as well. It's great. If you're going to do a program that is completely different than what we've had in town, including seats that recline and this sort of a thing, and an arcade, it'd be super. If you've got this firm in Dallas that's doing this for places all over the country, that'd be great to share that with us so we can share in your excitement for wanting what you want to do.
Well, I'll let the developer know. I appreciate that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other comments for Darrell? Okay, Darrell, if you'll wait there in case we have any from the public. Stan?
Stan Rotora. I'm in favor of the development in general, and I think some of the prior discussion answered some of my questions that I was going to ask. It's now my understanding that the construction doesn't actually have to start for phase 1 until 3 years, and that the construction for phase 2 doesn't have to start until 10 years till the final approval. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought phase 1 and phase 2. I thought no? It's just phase 1 is to be completed in 10 years?
No. Phase 1 is to begin in 3 years.
Right.
Phase 2 is to begin within 10 years. At the latest.
To begin within 10 years, not to be completed in 10 years.
To begin, to pull a permit.
Okay. All right. Well, okay.
I guess my feeling is, again, I'm in favor of the development. I'm in favor of almost any development that will help the city, make the city money, help quality of life. But in the meantime, what we're doing is tying up a lot of very useful land for up to 10 years or more. And we're also putting other people who may want to come in at an uncertainty of, should we come in, because we don't know what else is going to be there by the time we're to build. That is, there's the people who we are going to try to recruit between now and 10 years from now, say, are going to want to know what is here. And as long as they don't know and there's uncertainty about what's going to be here, say 5 years or 6 years or 8 years from now, it would seem to me that would put us at a risk in terms of trying to recruit other people. I guess I can go along with the 3 years, although I don't know if the standard is 18 months, 3 years seems maybe like a little bit long. 10 years seems to be an awfully long time tying up a property and creating uncertainty as to what the city is really going to be like. So I think some additional consideration should be given to what is the right time frame. I'm not familiar with the phasing of this kind of thing, as most people aren't, I would assume. But holding something in abeyance for 10 years, not understanding what's going to be there for 10 years, just seems like, off the top of my head, without having time to go in and look at it, seems like a long time.
Daryl, can you address that and what it's done, what you've done in other
can
theaters, and is that something unusual?
Peggy, I can answer a little bit, but maybe to begin with. Stan, we have several track maps that are ready to go. And every year we're doing track map extensions. So under your theory is that nobody would want to come in and develop a track map because we have several track maps that have already been approved by City Council. The developer could have designed this to be smaller. Now, if they have, if you look at their parcel map, they do have an idea what they want to put in. They like to put a market in there. They like to put other variety of businesses in there. Well, they're attempting to recruit those businesses. Now, just because there's a spot that says they may want to develop a market there is not going to stop another market from wanting to come in, let's say, next to Sears. It's not going to do anything. I mean, we're still in a free market economy. We can't guarantee anything that comes in.
And it is their property.
So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
And I
How
don't
long
disagree
are
with that.
traditional
I
track
totally
maps
agree with capitalism. I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong.
They have up to
Yeah, I mean, it would be possible to maybe break it up into 3 phases, have it 3 year, 6 year, 10 year, or that kind of thing. With regard to the extensions of the track maps that we've got, most of those are residential. They're not commercial, and that, quite frankly, is a different situation. The people who build residential housing know pretty much what housing looks like, what kind of housing they want to build. It's a different situation. But I do think that when you have only 2 phases and they're spread over 10 years, or actually more than 10 years, because it doesn't even have to start until the 10th year, that still ties up an awful lot of land and puts other competitors at an uncertainty of, do they want to even talk to us about coming in?
I tend to disagree with your.
Thank you for your time.
I tend to disagree with your theory there, Stan. I mean, if they built a movie theater and somebody wanted to build a market and they could buy a piece of land and develop it, they're going to develop it. I don't see where having somebody's land that they choose not to develop is going to take away a competitive edge or dissuade somebody from coming to the community. But Daryl, if you have anything to add to that.
Daryl, could you talk about that too, please?
Yeah. Well, when you try to master plan something this big, it's 15 acres. And so the developer wants to come in and develop a master plan and say, okay, here's what I want to do. But the development of it, the absorption rate, is really going to depend on how he can market it and recruit tenants to come in and fill the slots. Phase one is the anchor. The anchor is going to be the movie theater, the entertainment piece in the center. He's got to get that built first. Once he gets that, then he's got a much more marketable property to start to fill the slots for the outlots. Right now he's got at least one tenant that I know of, and he's got interest from some others. But once he gets phase one done, then the synergy to move on with the rest of it will pick up. But when you take a project to Planning Commission and they give you an 18-month approval, and then you have to come back every 12 months to get it extended, it's a lot of work, and it puts uncertainty behind a master plan development. So the purpose of the development agreement is to give the developer certainty so that he can go out and recruit other people and say, look, this is what we're doing. If you want to be a part of it, we've got approvals in place. We can get out and pull permits. And it just gives him the certainty that he needs so that he can develop the project without having to come back to Planning Commission every 12 months to get the project reapproved. So it makes it more palatable for a developer to have a long-term vision and to have an agreement knowing that his entitlements are in place. And
thank you.
He didn't have to have this to do this development, but it does give him certainty.
Can I ask a question? Do you have how many of these developments, you're doing this around the country?
No, I primarily do projects in Kern County.
In Kern County.
So
okay.
My practice is in Bakersfield.
Okay.
But I do projects all over in the valley and over in here. And yeah, on a larger commercial development like this, a development agreement is pretty common. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other questions
I've got
that
a couple
council
comments.
has? Go ahead,
A few
Mike.
comments I want to make. I understand that the site plan's already been approved by Planning Commission and didn't come forward, but it was in our packet, so I just want to make some comments. I'm concerned that we're setting, not just in this one, but the apartment project and everything else, we're cutting the parking spaces down to 18. I understand that we're probably talking about bringing that to council to change the ordinance. And I understand in reading this that I think it's 18 and a half feet, that a Buick Enclave, I think that was the example that the engineer used, fits in that space. And I know my Explorer will fit in that space, but my pickup truck will not. And we have a lot of pickup trucks in this town. I have a silver Tundra, and there's at least 4 other silver Tundras in this town that look just like mine, except the back is different. And my Tundra is 20 feet long. Now you've got, I guess, 60-degree parking, and they go out like that. So if another Tundra is on this side, I'm on this side, we back at the same time, there's no space. And I mean, it's our responsibility to watch what we're doing. But I think we're making a mistake, setting a precedent that we're going to cut all of our parking spaces down from the required 20 feet to, well, in this case, it's 18 and a half, but still, I'm going to hang out between 1 and 2 feet out into the drive lane when I park there, and if a truck parks on the other side of me, he's going to hang out. And by the way, I have a short bed, so I think a long bed is like 22, 23 feet long. And of course, I guess that's the developer's problem if people with big trucks decide not to go there because there's no room to park, or it's too hard to park. I'm just concerned about that. I would rather see us not require quite as many parking places and make them bigger, but that's. I had a very bad experience a couple months ago up in Lone Pine. I went to, I think it was the Best Western Motel, and I don't even know what the length of the place was. It was the width, and at least these are 9.5 feet wide. I could barely get out of my car. The place was full. There was a car in every parking space, and I had this much space between me and the car next to me to squeeze out. At 75 years of age, I have a hard time squeezing out between less than a foot in width. I'm just concerned with trucks in this parking lot. I think we're going to have some accidents. But I know that's not I just wanted to share that feeling. I don't have a problem with the development agreement. I'm not sure that 10 years isn't a little bit long, especially when we have options in there to do some extensions based on the city manager. But I don't have a problem with the 3 years, because obviously they got to submit the plans and for a building permit a lot sooner than 3 years, because it might take them 6 months to get the permit, based on personal experience. So,
Okay, is there any other discussion at council? Okay, and there is no more public comment? Okay, what I'm going to do then is ask for a motion to waive reading in full.
this is a public hearing. Did we ever open it?
Pardon me?
This is a public hearing. Did we ever open a public hearing?
Okay, we opened it and I closed it.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion to waive a reading in full of the ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest approving a development agreement between the city and G&L Channel Lake LLC. And is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, and then we need a motion to introduce by title only an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest approving a development agreement between the city and GL Channel Lake LLC. And that requires a motion and a second.
And this has the 3-year stipulation already put into it?
Yes.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, I asked to reserve the right to say a couple of things about this, and I would like to do that at this point in time. I received 2 phone calls in the past couple of days, and one rather long email, someone objecting to this project and that what it does to the existing movie theater. And I would like to be able to say this. It is not our job to say, we have, 7 Mexican restaurants. Another Mexican restaurant comes in and we say, I'm sorry, we have 7. We don't want any more Mexican restaurants. We have 11 Oriental restaurants. We don't want the 12th one. It is not our job to make that kind of judgment. It is our job to say, have we done it correctly? Have we done it fairly? Have we asked them to abide by all the rules and laws and regulations that every other business in this town that's similar must do? It seems to me a logical thing it is not for us to say, I like you and I don't like you, so therefore you can't come in because we got too many of this. As a business owner, I understand. I know how it feels. However, it is for all of us to stand up and support those businesses that are here, that continue to serve us, that always serve us, and take care of us. It is also our job to make sure, as a resident in this community, support your local businesses. Take care of them. Don't go drive 90 miles to go to a movie down in Lancaster or anywhere else. Go here. Support your businesses. Eat here. Spend your dollars locally. That is, if you don't like another movie theater coming in, I'm sorry. I understand. But what it comes down to is what is fair and right and reasonable. Not for us to determine that you can or may not come in as long as you abide by the same rules. My preaching is done. Thank you. Okay, the next item, we will go back then to item number 2. Discussion and provide guidance to the city's representative of the Board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Is there any discussion from council?
What do you got, Scott?
Well, did he have anything to report?
So I have just a few things that I'd like to update on. So in our last GA meeting, there's continued work that is being done, and the recent modeling scenario Model 6 has been brought up before Pack Attack and the community, and so that's the current focus right now, is addressing and discussing issues related to Model 6. Model 6 was similar to Model 4 in that the amount of pumping and extraction from the groundwater table was about the same, but the difference is that in the modeling scenario 6, the amount of water that they would take over that 5 or 6 year period of ramp down, that water would be pooled together into a pool of slightly over 63,000 acre feet. And then that water would be allocated out to the various users and to be used or seen to their own beneficial use. So that's Model 6. I highly recommend everybody. Things are moving along and will continue to move along at a fast rate. So I really urge you to get out and pay attention, watch the Pack and TAC meetings, come to the GA meetings, voice your opinions and concerns. So that's where we're at on Model 6. Everything is in the formulative stage now, and so it's still informational, taking in all the data to later be used to make decisions, but I want everybody to know that it's still in that formulative phase. Secondly, Capital Corps, who is responsible for looking into the water importation feasibility for us, is continuing to do their work. They have completed a grant. They went out and found a grant, which it's over $300,000, which they have completed and submitted to see about getting us additional money, a sizable amount of money. Can be used for them and for future work in this same direction. So I'm real pleased to see what they've accomplished so far, and we'll be updating everyone as soon as we hear further information back from them on the feasibility of the water. The third thing I'd like to bring up is the well registration forms. There was an agreement, I believe, pretty much at the last GA meeting on the well registration form that's going out. And so anybody listening, all of those who are listening, urge everyone that does have wells to take a look at these forms, try to get on board with the registration that's being asked of everyone. And so that's pretty much it. I'll keep everybody updated.
Talk about the forms if you're a de minimis user.
Well, the forms, if you're a de minimis user, it's pretty simple. And I think it just got simpler based on the outcome of the GA meeting. It's asking whether or not, just name, address, do you have a well, or are you a de minimis user? But I believe it was brought forward that, and you can quote me, don't quote me, but I believe that it is going to have a shortened version of that even, so that it basically will be name, address, do you have a well, and get your contact into the GA.
But if you say you're a de minimis user, if you're not, then
I think there was a block on there to check if you're a de minimis user. So if you're a de minimis user, meaning you're pumping less than 2 acre feet a year, then it's a very simple form. And so the goal here is Sigma's going to require everybody to be registered anyway. So we're kind of obligated to, get everybody on, get everybody on board and get you registered. So, any sharing the information that we can do out there right now is important, because it's tough to get the information out to the rural side of life. So, did that answer your questions, Peggy?
So I have some questions and comments about the GSA process. So one thing, and I've said this before, I think, and it's been a while since we've done a nighttime meeting, and I saw online that there was concerns that after this model had been released, there was a lot of people that wanted to participate and comment on it, but having it in the middle of the day on a Thursday, a lot of people work, and so I know that there was people who wanted to come and make comments, but because it's the middle of their workday, they didn't. So I was concerned to learn about Cerral's Valley potentially being on the chopping block now, and the way that was done. Like the council, we didn't hear about that ahead of time. I honestly read about it in the newspaper. So I have concerns about that. I know they responded with a letter saying, not so fast, we have some water rights that preempt the Navy. But concerns about putting out there when they're in the middle of making decisions to rebuild, that we may cut off their water supply is concerning, because I know there's about 400 to 600 employees that live in Ridgecrest that work over there. And I also have concerns about talking about cutting off these industries, but then we're saying we're still going to need to import the water, and that if we're cutting off these large users that have more money, then we're leaving only the citizens left to pay the bill for building the pipelines and for importing the water. Also, I know there was some talk about wheeling water from the north, but Inyo continually makes it clear that they don't want us taking water from their county. And then I know there's been a lot of comments about, at the GSA meeting last time, from what I saw, they were trying to convince people that it's been transparent, but I've heard from a lot of people that they felt like a lot of decisions were made in the back room during closed sessions. And then I really haven't heard much about growth rate assumptions. And then I know like the recharge number was kind of picked. Like there's varying numbers on recharge, but then we kind of pick one, and that makes a big difference on what our water rates are that we actually have to use. And if we pick the wrong recharge rate, then it could impact how many people get to stay and use water. And
can you answer
Okay.
some of those
yeah.
that way
So-
we can
Okay.
address some of those issues?
Okay.
I mean, and then we can go on and make sure we get all of them answered.
Okay.
Keep me on track. I'll try to
All right.
take it back from the beginning. So back to Searles Valley. So I believe it was brought up in the last GA meeting that Searles Valley has brought more information to the table on their pumping rights from with a long history of it dating way back. That is all being addressed. As a director, for representing the city, for myself, I'm speaking that Searles Valley is a major economic impact on this city, and I think it has to make sure that they are their needs and their water is taken care of too, or addressed. So, but that is currently being addressed. So I think it's safe to say that Searles Valley and their faculty and then attorneys, they'll come to the table and get their issues addressed, and I'm sure it will be brought out into public, through the GA. Secondly, let's go to the second question you had in regards to.
Well, I brought up the nighttime meetings too.
Okay, the nighttime meetings. I think that'd be something that would have to be brought before the GA formally. I mean, I could ask them, if they would be willing. Are we talking like a town hall type meeting or more of a public awareness meeting?
They've had a couple of nighttime meetings, and so that's allowed time for people who can't make the Thursday meetings, but it's been a long time. There was one at the hotel when
Right.
it was first started, and then there was the one in Inyo Kern, and then they held it here at
I know that timing is and time factors of everybody's schedules are tough, especially with everything going on. These meetings are held every week, so I'd like to think that people could try to make a meeting. So
It's always at night.
what's that?
PAC
Well,
is always at night.
right, and the PAC meetings are at night, and a lot of the information that goes through PAC or TAC is information that's going to get brought to the GA and then back out during that public GA meeting.
Okay.
Keep them coming.
Oh, okay. So cutting off the industrial users and leaving the citizens with the bill to build the infrastructure, because it's saying that we're going to have to still import water, even if we get rid of the large ag and possible, because the latest model run showed getting rid of Searles Valley. I'm still saying that's there. But we're still going to have to import water, and we're going to build the infrastructure to bring the water here.
Right. I think at this stage it's probably speculative to try to come up with an answer to that in regards to how much is it going to cost, who's going to pay for it. I think you can reasonably state that it's going to be a shared cost in through the valley, that it's going to be a wide range participatory cost. Ultimately, all of this is going to possibly have some effect on water costs and usage of every individual user in the valley.
Well,
So
and I guess I just
that's
look
part
at
of a plan that's being put together now that I don't think we have an answer to.
Yeah, I guess I look at it more concerned for the citizens of Ridgecrest, because we're citizens of Ridgecrest, which is one of the big three. We're users of the water district, which is one of the big three, and then we're in the county too. So if, those three agencies, are we going to pay a larger portion living in the city of Ridgecrest than, others? Because someone's going to have to pay, I think it's like $100 million or more
Right.
that's estimated to build
And again,
the
I don't think,
pipelines.
it's premature to answer that question, I think, because we don't know that answer.
Yeah.
But in theory, may I
Yes,
say
you can.
something? But in theory, it comes down to that all are going to pay. It's not going to be borne only by the citizens of Ridgecrest. It's going to be borne by everybody who uses water, whether they live in the city and when they live in the county.
It's an
And
aquifer-wide.
exactly.
Right,
And
but I guess I was saying we're getting rid of the people, like if we're getting rid of large ag and possibly large industrial users, they have more cash at risk in this. And if you get rid of them, they also could help pay the bills. And so that was one thought that I had, was if you're getting rid of them, then you're leaving all of the citizens of the valley to pay for it.
You're not getting, I'm sorry, you're
Well, it's going to affect, everybody that lives within the aquifer region. You're talking from Inyo, Kern, and down to San Bernardino County. And again, there's no way to answer where those costs are, who's going to pay the brunt of it, or who's going to pay how it's going to be spread out at this point. So I don't think you can answer that.
But at this point in time, we're not cutting anybody off.
We're not cutting anybody off. It's all in planning stages. So there's, we're not. Yeah. So there's no way to answer.
So
that
at
question.
what point are you choosing which model run scenario that you're designing the GSP for?
As we progress through this whole process and all the data comes in and we finally hit a finalization of inputs done, now we got to make the decision. That's when the decisions will be made, and we're not there yet.
How far off are we? Because the report's due at the beginning of the year?
Right. I don't think there's, at least to my knowledge, been like an exact timetable or date set that says at this point this, that action will be handled.
Okay. And then, like one of the scenarios I heard was that Inyo County, potentially importing water from Inyo County in, but Inyo County makes it very clear that they don't think that they're not willing to let water leave their county.
Inyo County has voiced on numerous occasions their position on and their viewpoint on water coming out of Inyo. The Capitol Corps is addressing the importation of water at this point. They're addressing a huge, wide range of array of issues. That is just one issue. Water wheeling is just that. It's purchasing water wherever you might find it. If it's up north in a wet year, wherever you buy water, that water could be purchased and then through DWP wheeled down. So it's more of an issue with us, DWP or AVAC or whoever, in a situation that we were able to develop a relationship with and have the infrastructure and have the water available, then it would be a matter of where do you get that water. So, but Inyo has just made it very clear that that's their point. So, and that's all it is.
Okay. And then, like, the model concerns, like, are we for sure that the model is calibrated completely accurate, that we're using correct growth assumptions? Like, how confident are we that we chose the right recharge number? Because that was a pretty wide range number. Some have said 6,000 up to 12,000, but we landed at 7,003.
650.
Yeah. So because that implication is significant too, because if we were able to say 12,000, that would be a lot more, user water available for us.
Well, it's my understanding they base that recharge on the available data that they've had presented to them. And so, you could bring that question to the technical advisory committee, and if you wanted to delve deeper into it. But I would say that the information that they have and that they're working with is.
They were planning on drilling at one point to check it a little bit more, but then like the money to get that done wasn't available in time. So is there?
Go ahead.
The 7650 was the latest study done by the Navy and the U.S. and Department of Water Resources and the USGS, all of them together. They came up with that figure. There were other figures up to 12,000. In fact, there was one done by the university, a gentleman at Pierce was his name, University of Bakersfield or Bakersfield College, that it was 36,000 acre feet. You can take those figures, but the latest one that's generally accepted by everybody was that 7650, and that was and the Navy adopted that also.
But I was under the impression that they were going to find a little bit more concrete way, like they were going to do some drilling and testing to get that verified more, but the money for that grant wasn't available. So are we still proceeding with trying to verify that number some way?
Are you referring to the drilling in the southwest area
of
the Hawkford? Well, I believe that's still an ongoing project, that the depth and the money's involved because of the extensiveness of the drilling, that they ran short of funds, and I think they're waiting further funding to follow through with the remainder because of depth and cost. But that's still part of an ongoing
And have
project.
the model, like how confident are they and like how much it's been calibrated? Because like I used to do traffic modeling, and so we would build the model and then you would calibrate it to traffic counts to make sure that it's accurate before you start testing scenarios. Are they, really confident in the model? I mean, because we're talking about, potentially in this latest model run, you're talking about cutting off some large users. And so I just want to make sure that we're really confident in this model that we're using. If we end up choosing model run number 6 as our design one for our plan, that we think it's really accurate. And then like the tertiary numbers, like why is it limited to 300 acre feet versus there's more affluent coming in than that? So and then population growth percentages make a difference too. So that's just, there's a lot of variables in these model scenarios. So.
Well, yeah, I understand your question. I don't know that I'm one to question the scientific validity of these tests or these scenarios and the science that goes into it, because we're dealing with engineers and scientists and guys that are far more educated in their field than myself. So I would not be one to, technically critique whether or not that probably have to come from somebody that has equal or better experience. But so I don't have a.
Can I?
Yeah.
Say? Okay. Those numbers, the models were based on well usage, well recharge, and estimates of what happens if this is done. And you keep saying cutting off. There is no way to cut off anybody at this point in time. There is a way to buy out water. There is a way for overline users as ag to sell water. There is many options. And to simply say you're going to cut somebody off, nobody is going to cut Searles Valley off. There is other ways. They have brackish water that can be treated. There was even a discussion of putting an aircraft carrier, or was that an aircraft carrier out there and treat their brackish water as an option. It was a far out, but there is no cutting off. Everybody is looking at how we accomplish this in a way that is fair and equitable, given our water situation. We're using 28,000 acre feet. We are recharging 7,650 acre feet, and there is we are overdrafted by 2/3. We have to find a way to accomplish that, and the state has given us, go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
The state has given us that time to do that. And that is why we can review the plan every 5 years. We must review the plan every 5 years, and we can do it as we get new information and change it. So to make statements that say we are going to do this, you can't do that without having the validity and the knowledge and the numbers that show that. I've heard people say that, and I don't think they're very, very accurate in those statements. I know they're not accurate in their statements.
Well, I guess they look at it as, if you say, so under Model Run 6, I mean, I'm changing it to cutoff, but by limiting their water usage down to such a small amount, that's basically making so that they can no longer operate. So essentially, you're cutting them off.
So if you go back to the white paper modeling scenario, or the current pumping level that we're currently at, and I believe Stetson's made brought it up on several occasions, but the current pumping that is going now on the modeling run that they did with white paper doesn't look good for the long-term future of water in the valley. So if you look at, groundwater storage versus recharge, which I think they've got a pretty good handle on the recharge amounts coming in, and you look at the long-term, 50, 70, 100-year outcomes, the current rate leaves a lot of uncertainty and unknown about where or would we have water. Well, it shows that we won't, bottom line. So that being on the far end there, there's no doubt that the GA is looking at, we're on a timetable from Sigma, and they're taking in all the data they can, and we have to have groundwater sustainability plan, and so you can only work with what you have for water in, water out. And so that's kind of the big picture of it. So yes, you're going to have changes down the road. They're going to affect everybody. We don't know what those changes are yet, and so we will continue, to work through it.
Okay. I think Mr. Matthews may have had a question too. I don't want to make him.
Okay, well, we were waiting for you to finish yours. Have you asked?
What other?
I want to hear what they have to say and then think about what I've heard so far.
Dave?
Thank you. Doc, you and I talked about this a little while ago, and I hope you haven't forgot, but the council apparently has forgotten that at the last meeting, I think it was during public comment, I don't remember exactly, I suggested that this council support Miss Lori Wagner's letter to the editor and the contents thereabouts within, that we asked for an extension at least on the deadline, because we just had a major earthquake for one thing, and we don't know for sure that we still have the same flow into this valley, regardless of what the outtake is. And I asked this council to make their own request. Apparently you just ignored it, so that's fine. That's your prerogative. But I suggest that we do it, and maybe this is the way to do it, is through our representative. But there's other concerns too that I mentioned to Doc at least. I don't think I got it to the council. I meant to, but it just didn't happen. If you go back far enough in history, I think this valley has a claim against DWP. And we could pursue that one way or another to make sure that we get some more water from them, even if you want to call it water wheeling or whatever. And I think Mrs. Stevens has some valid points. If you diminish the use of some of these larger users to the point that it can't operate, they can't operate, so they go out of business. So we don't have their funding coming in, and guess who picks it up? We the citizens. And if we the citizens can't afford it, we'll get up and move, perhaps, or maybe die off, some of us. And you're not going to have our funding either, so you just won't have a water district. So we need to get a different approach on this whole business. I was going to put a adverb in there, but I didn't. So that's my 2 cents in this whole bit, and I hope somebody starts listening. Thank you.
So just a quick comment there, Dave. I believe that letter that you were referring to from Mrs. Wagner, I believe that was submitted to the GA in the last meeting. So,
Stan Ratora again. First of all, I'd like to thank Councilmember Stevens for bringing up some very vital issues for our valley. I'd like to reiterate 2 of them from a slightly different perspective. Searles Valley Minerals does have a significant impact on the Ridgecrest economy. They need a solution. My feeling is that the GA should be working with Searles Valley Minerals, not just telling them how much water they can or cannot have, but how do we solve, among all of the other parts of the problem and the puzzle, come to a broader perspective on looking at the whole problem, and the solution to Searles Valley Mineral has to be included in that. I have been to every PAC meeting, every TAC meeting, and every GA meeting for the last 3 years. Of course, the PAC and the TAC haven't been meeting for 3 years, but nonetheless, I have not seen any mention of anything regarding how are we going to help Searles Valley Minerals stay alive. We need them to stay alive. Our economy demands that we keep them alive. I don't know what the solution is, but I would like to see more discussion at the TAC, at probably more the PAC, more appropriately, and the GA as to how do we keep them alive with whatever water we think we can allocate to them, whether it's what they're getting now or zero, doesn't make any difference. They need help, just like we all need help, and they need a solution. The second thing I'd like to reiterate is the Inyo County water. I understand that we are looking at various issues, but there are 2 directors on the Groundwater Authority that were very verbal about the real way to get more water is from the north. I have listened during the various GA meetings to probably at least 3 different representatives from Inyo County. There's not one of them that would suggest that there was any chance at all of us getting Inyo water. Now, I don't know if it's a problem of communication. You know, have we just totally failed in communicating with Inyo County? The GA has had 2 to 3 years to talk with Inyo County. The Inyo County rep is still saying, hey, he's trying to be politically correct, but he's really saying is, no way in hell are you going to get Inyo County water. He was much nicer than that, but that's the bottom line. So if we continue to say we're going to use Inyo County water, we've got a serious communication issue that we need to resolve with Inyo County. And my sort of summary third point is we've got 5 months before we have to submit the GSP. In theory, there's supposed to be a 3-month final review, which means we have really 2, at most 3 months to get this thing finished. And there are a lot of financial issues that have to be included. It has to be executable, and I see us running out of time. We were promised, that is, the public was promised, a new schedule 4 months ago and 3 months ago and 2 months ago, and I'm not even sure if we're going to get a new schedule this next GA meeting. As long as we had the commander from the base sitting up there and pounding on the table and asking, where is the schedule, how are we doing with regard to the schedule, we kind of tried to at least pretend that we were keeping on schedule. We're not anymore. We don't have a schedule as far as I'm aware, or the one that we do have is totally ridiculous at this point in time. So in any event, my feeling is those 2 issues with regard to the Searles Valley, hey, they're our neighbors. They impact us. We need to help them. And I'd like to see the GA do a whole lot more for them. And if we're going to continue to talk about Inyo County water, we need to talk with Inyo County. I'm sorry. It just has to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat Ferris, and thank you, Lindsay, for bringing up some of those concerns. Those are questions that a lot of people should be asking and are not. We can't go down 2 paths. And relative to the LADWP, I think it's probably 6 to 8 times the member on the GA board keeps saying, it's wishful thinking, it's not going to happen. And so we should just cross that off. But I think the reason we're doing that is we're putting false hopes out there for people. It's a false hope to tell people we're going to get water. But the reason that that's held out there is because it's less expensive. The water that they're from the south, as they were talking about, and I think a couple of the members, as has been mentioned, they don't want to go that route because the water is so expensive. I think Scott, to keep saying that we don't know how much it's going to cost yet, I mean, we better start thinking about how much it's going to cost. And Mick Gleason has said on a few occasions, is it feasible, imported water? Is it affordable? And it is available. Is it available? None of those questions have been answered. There's a scripture that says a man building a house needs to first sit down and count the cost. And I have a problem with the fact that we're so determined that those numbers are right, Lindsay, about our recharge. Those are total assumptions. I want to tell you that those are how we're defining our future is not based on fact, based on assumptions. It's assumed that we're in critical overdraft. It's assumed that we have the recharge that the Todd report says. And it's a long story, but we got to this place by a lot of political manipulation. And I want to tell you that a political approach to solving problems is not a good strategy because fact and science matter. And we have been approaching this politically, not based on fact and science. And we could, if we were serious about a solution, we could go drill some deep wells and we could find out how much water we have and stop the guessing game. You know, I might, if I have a bank account and I don't know how much money I have in the bank, I could live like a pauper. But gee, I might be rich. I might have a lot of money in the bank if I found out. Let's find out how much money, and I'm not talking about storage. There are lots of studies, and I want to repeat this again. Dr. Iris Priesthoff, the president of Todd Engineers, made this statement. I have it in writing. I'm surprised at how much weight was put on those reports. She says they're just reports. Here's the president of the people that put that Todd report together. She said more studies need to be done. This was stated a long time ago, but it was decided by the Kern County Board of Supervisors. I was there when it was stated. And Supervisor Gleason made this statement. I don't know if I agree with the Todd report, but since it's the greatest preponderance of evidence we have, we're going to go with it. Unfortunately, that's because the supervisors don't know about all the studies. We have 100 years of studies. We've had 50 years of controversy. And we're still driving our future based on assumptions. I think we better get serious and start dealing with facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Is there any other public comment? Okay, is there any other council comment?
Yeah, so based off a couple of things, and it brought up some more. So are we looking at asking for an extension? Because, like I said a little while ago, we are only a few months out, and we haven't decided which modeling scenario we're going to use and how much things are going to cost and how we're going to pay for them. And I'm assuming those things need to be in the plan. So are we looking at asking for an extension on this?
So currently, we're working at continuing to complete the project on task, on time. I would say that's.
So we have a draft.
That's the goal. Is to stay within the timetables, that have been set forth by Sigma. So unless that changes, I'm sure that the GA will bring that out. That's not my decision, but so.
I mean, have we also considered, saying this kind of cookie cutter Sigma approach may not work universally for each valley. Like each one's unique, and saying that we have to stay within, if we're saying we only have 7,000 acre feet, saying we have to sustain life on 7,000 acre feet, I mean, is that even feasible for our valley? Because can we, like she said, can we even afford to build the infrastructure, and can we even get water imported here and afford it?
Those things continue to be looked at. I hear, comments about, cost, and that's why we've hired professionals to determine what those costs are going to be. And when those numbers come out, we'll make it available. So that is currently one of the projects that's being worked on. So, and Sigma's cookie cutter plan might be very different from what is currently going on with our GA and the Valley trying to put this plan together. So I wouldn't compare Sigma's approach to our approach. I think that might be quite different.
And then I know there was some questions I've seen asked about the pumping distribution, and does that make a difference on, and have we studied that more?
In what regards are you talking about pumping distribution?
Like, I know that there's been comments that I've heard talk about like the cone of depression, and that if they don't, look at how they're pumping out for the valley.
I think if you watched the PAC and TAC meetings and looked at what the science behind it, that they do address that. And so they look at what pumping does when it occurs in certain areas of the valley and the overall pumping. So, yeah, so that information is out there.
Both from modeling and from actual measurements.
Okay. Right. I think that's all I have for now, but it doesn't sound like we're it sounds like the deadline's quickly approaching, but we still have a lot of unknowns, and so hopefully they get filled in soon and we get a draft report.
I think it's safe to say there continues to be a lot of work to be done, and that they're working very hard at meeting those deadlines. So,
and then I've heard one more thing, concerns over lawsuits, and so because when we start talking about limiting some of these large users' supply, that there's concerns over lawsuits, and I know that they sent letters, and is there discussion on who's paying for that if those proceed forward?
Who's paying for the lawsuits?
Yeah. Like, if we have to go to court over this
That
limiting.
pertain directly to the GA?
Yeah.
Well, the GA has legal representation. So it would, of course, go through the...
But do they have insurance yet, or coverage, or, I
So
mean, are they each agency relying on each individual agency still? And
I'm going to slightly detour off of this for a minute, because I feel like these questions are more geared at a point in time to air issues that you may have or other individuals may have, which is fine. My understanding is it's a guidance. This is a discussion and provide guidance to the city's representative on the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. So, which I think we keep it within the discussion and guidance, but there's a lot of questions being asked here that I think pertain to things that have already been addressed, that pertain to questions and information that's already out there that I'd be happy to help disseminate. But I almost feel like I'm being put out on the end of a limb here to address these questions, and I'm not real comfortable in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to make that clear.
Right. I mean, I just thought this was the time for the council to get
I agree
to discuss,
wholeheartedly.
and so that's where. And I'm not pointing directly at you. I'm just asking questions because you're our arm into the
right
group. So.
Okay, is there any other questions from the council? Okay, Pat, I see you standing up there again.
I just wanted to bring up this point. These questions are valid, and Scott, these questions are not being addressed. They're asked over and over and over again, and it's not that you should have to be the one to answer them, but there are answers that we need to find, questions that we do need to find answers to. And speaking to the litigation, Supervisor Gleason has continually reminded us that the lawyers are lining up, and there's going to be a lot of lawsuits. And if we have Big Ag, a grower has invested about $25 million in his industry. These people aren't going to take this lightly. And it's not going to be an easy thing to face, but and Searles Valley, I mean, those letters have come already from their attorneys and from Meadowbrook, and they're lining up, and they're saying, we expect to be treated fairly. And when they bought property in agriculture, they bought ag land. They bought agriculturally zoned land, and they came here with an industry that was, as far as they knew, was something that was going to be accepted. And so there are going to be heavy lawsuits, and we will pay the bill.
Okay, thank you all. The next item on the agenda is approve a resolution giving authorization to apply for fiscal year 2020, 2021, and 21-22 Regional Surface Transportation Program and Highway Infrastructure Program Project Application Grant. Sir.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, this is a procedural item that I have for you tonight. What we have is a call for projects for our Regional Surface Transportation Program as well as our Highway Infrastructure Program. And what's required in order to make application is we are required to have a resolution from the council as well as authorization to the city manager to make application. This is programmed money that'll be in the FTIP, the Federal Transportation Improvement Program. And what we're asking is KernCog to allocate these funds for fiscal years 2021 and 21-22. What we have proposed and recommended through the Infrastructure Committee is to apply for funds to redo West Ward Street between Norma and China Lake Boulevard. We've prepared a very rough order of magnitude estimate of what we think that cost might be. And with that, we've calculated what we think the local match will be, as well as what the federal program will match for us. So with that, Honorable Mayor, what I'm asking the council to do tonight is, number one, approve the resolution that we're going to be good for our local match, and also to authorize the city manager to file the application. And councilmen and council members, I'm available for any questions.
I would like to make sure that everybody understands that the revenue income will be $774,611, and we will match 11.47% of that, which is $100,360. And I wanted to make sure they understood the value of that. The public did.
I just have some comments.
Yep.
This did go through infrastructure. We approved it be sent to council. There is one error, though, Lauren, in your summary on the first page. It says the proposed project is resurfacing and rehabilitation of West Ward between North Norman Street and North College Heights.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was
It's
like
between
trying to
North
figure out.
China
I was like,
Lake.
how is that working?
That's
I'm
right.
like pulling up my map. I was like,
Well, that's a new roadway we're anticipating now.
There is no North College Heights.
yeah, that's what I was
absolutely
like.
correct.
I was pulling up my map and I'm like looking and I was like, what? That doesn't make sense.
I just had to laugh at
I
that.
called and said, what is this?
Anyway,
I don't know that street.
I'm fully in favor of this project.
I had a quick question. Is this one of the streets though that like we thought was damaged more in the earthquake? From like I thought that Bard had said at one point in time that the cracks on this road had spread farther apart from the earthquakes, and so how does that impact this as well?
In fact, Ward Street from China Lake all the way to Down Street was damaged, and I would assume if this grant is approved that we would more than likely, if we knew when the road was going to be fixed, we more likely would not be using those dollars to fix this portion of the road.
Okay. All right.
'Cause
Sorry,
we-
because that was because we talked about this before the earthquakes at infrastructure. So I was just because I thought that this had been one of the roads that we mentioned. So
But this is one of the roads we go thump, 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 thump on.
right, but he had mentioned that this got damaged
Got some
more
damage.
because of the earthquake.
Right, but yeah, that won't fix your thumping noise to every degree, even if we got it fixed through the CDAA, through the reimbursement, because there's other issues with the road.
And so on roads that were damaged by the earthquake, if I heard it right before, we're responsible for going ahead and fixing those roads and then getting reimbursement back from the state later.
Correct.
And so we would still fix, and if we could resubmit, and get some of that money back. Would that be?
We'd have to look. I mean, for this section of road,
add
to this, Lauren, if you need to. For that section of road, it depends on the timing.
Okay.
I mean, if it was going to be a year and a half before we're going to, overlay the road, then we may fix it because the cost is not that great, and then you're improving the condition for that time being. So it just depends.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to make that judgment call at the time.
Last meeting, we'd hope to be sooner than later.
Right.
Right.
Get her fixed.
So we got reimbursed.
If you remember, the special meeting that you just had was in an effort for us to pre-fund some of this money so our reimbursement would come back quicker. So it's a judgment call that's going to have to be made to fix that road because there are, if we do believe that the rideability will improve for a year and a half, we may go forward with that.
Okay.
Depending upon the cost.
All right.
Okay, is there any other council discussion? Is there any public discussion, questions? Okay, a motion?
I still move.
Second.
Please vote.
It might not take.
Yeah, go. 5 ayes, motion carries.
All right, now we are down to committee reports. City org,
No meeting.
okay, Finance Committee,
You guys just met.
Scott?
So yes, we met, and I'd kind of like to share this comment with Mayor Breeden, with her input on it too. So the Finance Committee did meet. Our primary discussion was a employee compensation and salary study. And so it was, I think, agreed upon that we would pursue that. The majority of it has been budgeted in the city's budget already. And so we did not specifically pick a organization or group to perform the study yet. We're going to have a second meeting next week, I guess you could say a emergency special meeting to address that issue. And so at that point, we'll know, we're doing a little more review on some of these firms, trying to get a little more validation on their prior work. And so we should have some names and be able to pick a specific firm to do the work. And then we'll get that submitted right away. The brunt, after discussing that aspect of the meeting, we discussed the overall situation that the city sits in with its employees and our budget and where we're at in the big picture, and it's pretty sombering. And so, and I think Mayor Breeden can maybe add to that and what our goals are as a city to try to fix it.
We have employees who have never had a raise since 2008. Not a cost of living raise, not one raise. We have given them, I'm going to say, at a holiday time, we gave them some money, but no raise. I don't believe there's anybody in this entire valley, in this entire state, who can say they have not had a raise since 2008. Yet we expect our employees to continue to operate that way. Not fair, not right, not just, and we all lose when we do that, because we want to see, the question right now is, we're looking at the salary and the benefits, and that's what we want to look at, how that applies to the total package. The idea is not how we're going to fund it. That isn't what we're talking about now. We want to look at so we can compare apples with apples. And so if anybody here can say they haven't had a raise since 2008, or anybody in the state of California, you let me know.
I haven't.
You've got to give yourself a raise.
Okay.
Excuse me, my Social
No one's going to give it.
Your Social Security
Social
has.
Security.
Yes,
and
that's why.
Some of the big issues are that
we're
losing people left and right. Our police department has lost numerous employees. It's putting us in a situation where I don't remember the exact time frames, but we do have an individual here that might keep me straight on my numbers. But sometime next year, if we were to do an assessment of the PD, was it about a year out that they had mentioned that the average age of the officer on duty or time on duty and their experience on in the saddle is pretty shorter than it should be by a long shot, and so it puts risk at operating a solid PD. We're losing staff, and we lose them to the base. We're losing people to Inyo County, to other cities, to other areas that have better, maybe like Peggy was just saying, the pay and the plan and the overall big picture of what they're offered in these other places. So, and it's been so long since we have done anything here that I, for one, and I think Peggy, we all agree that it's a high priority, and we want to see this addressed. We want to see it in the limelight, up in the forefront of what we do out here for quite some time until we get it remedied. And so you're going to probably hear a whole lot more of it each and every time, but.
We have departments in this city that has one person. We expect them to take care of the whole department with one person. It's unacceptable to me to expect perfection let alone everything from a one-person department. And it's not like anybody's sitting around. They're all working. I see them here when I come down on Friday. They're working. Even though they have a day off, they're here. And when we hear of, I've heard the hospitals say they're losing people to the base.
Correct.
Everybody is losing people to the base. We can't compete, and we are going to be second rate. I'm not willing to accept that for our employees or for our city.
I just have one comment. I have a son-in-law that used to be a Ridgecrest police officer. He's now in Gilbert, Arizona. He told me the last time we visited that he's making a substantial amount more money there than if he was still here. Substantial amount.
Go ahead.
Well, that is a common.
We heard percentages of people.
Unfortunately.
We couldn't say, Officer so-and-so left here, and Officer so-and-so was making this, and he's making this there. But we can look at those same levels, and it isn't right. We expect our people to be so loyal to us to lose money, or to make the same money they made in 2008. Not fair. Not acceptable. It isn't acceptable to any of us who are working or any of us who are receiving monies from the government, from everybody else. It's not acceptable. So, okay, I've politicked enough on that. Go ahead. Infrastructure?
We meet tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
I would like to ask something. I know at a couple of infrastructure, or maybe it was the last, I didn't attend the last one, so the infrastructure meeting before that, we were working on a development process to help our developers. I see that it's not on the agenda this time.
No, that's not in infrastructure. That's in economic development.
Economic development.
Oh.
They're working on it.
Okay, you are. Okay, so it'll be then coming out soon?
It's posted online.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Can we say that really loud?
Yeah. I mean, it's still, like, it's a working document, so we're going to add to it once we do the fees and things like that. But, yeah, it's posted online.
Okay, I knew you and staff were working on it.
Yeah.
And I've heard numerous complaints from people that we still haven't seen it. Thank you. Please make that known. Okay. All right. Now, Parks and Rec, Quality of Life.
Haven't met.
Youth Advisory hasn't met. The Action Committee, we haven't met. In September, we will meet.
Yeah, is that getting scheduled? Because September's coming up, so as a friendly reminder. I believe so. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, RACVP?
The International Powwow will be held in Vegas, which is close enough for us to have a presence by attending with our own booth. New billboards on 395 and 14, thank heavens. We have new skins. We replaced the two graphics with the hotel room and the bed thing in the 2018 Petroglyph Festival. RACVB now has a new visitor campaign as well as adding the two new billboards. We've got a new website for the Ridgecrest Film Commission. It's www.filmridgecrest.com. Chip was at the last meeting. We're talking about the 2019 Duel in the Desert event that'll be held at the fairground, and it will become a signature event for 2020. Flix, the Film Liaison in California group, the Flix board is met and it met on June 28th. It's hosted by the Hollywood Reporter magazine offices in Los Angeles. The film report for June 2019, there were 4 productions, and at the Inyakern Airport for June there was 1 production. So the total community spend for June and July was almost 74,000.
Thank you. Economic Development?
We did not.
Okay. Other committees, boards, or commissions?
Yeah, KernCog is dark this month. They've requested next month that we make a presentation about the earthquakes. So I need to get together with whoever is going to do that presentation. and I will introduce you, and then we've got about 20, 25 minutes. Shouldn't go any more than that. So,
Okay.
Are you going to do that, Ron, or are you going to have somebody else do it?
We'll figure that out.
Pardon?
We'll figure it out.
Okay. We meet the third Thursday of the month, so it'll be the third Thursday of September.
5 o'clock?
Pardon?
At 5 o'clock for that
No,
first
6.
report?
6 for the presentation, 6:30
Okay.
for the meeting.
Okay, all right.
They have a presentation every month at 6 o'clock, and then go into the meeting at 6:30.
City manager's report.
Yes, ma'am. Just to report, we potentially have some more earthquake damage that just revealed itself last week. Our well out at Pearson Park is down. We do believe that it may be some sort of casing issue, which seems to be fairly common throughout the valley on private wells. We do have a crew that's coming out here real soon. The earliest appointment I think we could get was next week to check it out, so we'll see if we can get it fixed. If it turns out that if it's damage was caused by the quake, then we'll obviously submit a claim to get partial reimbursement on the repair. In the meantime, we're going to find a way of at least watering the trees and some of the other critical plants that are out in the park to keep them alive in this process, because it's pretty warm out there. So just a report on some additional damage potential. If it's not, we got to get it fixed anyway.
Thank you. Okay, future agenda items? Anybody?
Yeah, I have one. I would like to bring the In God We Trust issue back with full data that I was remiss the last time, so it'll be in the full packet for everybody before the next meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Martin, for the next meeting, staff reports and everything are due on Monday. Is that going to be enough time for you to put it on the next agenda? For the September 4th meeting, everything would be due this coming Monday.
This coming Monday?
Or do you want to put it on the September 18th agenda?
Let's put it on the September 18th.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, mayor and council comments. Let's start down here with Mike.
Missed all you guys. Not really, but glad to be back. I just want to make some comments about item 2 on the agenda, because I thought that was way out of line with what the original reason for item 2 would be on there was. It was so our representative could come to us and say what's going to be voted on at the next meeting, and then we could give guidance on how to vote, not to rehash the whole thing. I think if the council wants to make a recommendation to Scott to put something on the agenda, that's fine, but I don't think we need to rehash all their things and go on for half hour to 45 minutes over an item that Scott should have presented as if they had any votes, and that's the reason it was put on the agenda in the first place. That's all I've got to say.
Scott?
I just want to remind everybody about the SBA loans, and their group is set up down at the Kerr-McGee Center, and I believe they're there through the rest of this week. I think Jed said 2 weeks last time, and I think that was last week and this week, but maybe you have a date.
I believe they're here for at least another 2 weeks.
Another 2 weeks? Okay.
A week positively, but I believe it's 2 weeks.
Okay, so everybody's still good, and if you need to seek their services, you still got 2 more weeks.
Yeah, as soon as we know a date when they're leaving, we'll make sure it's posted.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's it.
Lindsay? Wallace? I just want to thank staff and the police department for their help yesterday with a meeting. We must have had about 50 to 60 people in here figuring out how we are going to address the SBA loans, CalOES. Jed did a great job and has selected the Lighthouse organization to act as the recipient of continued reports so they can start allocating out which group, which money, which information, and it was a fantastic meeting there, especially the people who had damages and the organizations who had money to give, putting those people together. So it was a great meeting, and I think staff, CalOES, and the SBA people. The deadline for making those applications for SBA loans is October 7th. So you need to get your money, get your application in. The rate is Okay, I'm going to be.
The rate is 2% for
2%
residential and
into 4.
4% for business.
Right, thank you, 4%. Mike was there too last night, and we both saw a lot of people and opportunities, and if you don't apply and get your application in to get those dollars that you are entitled to, both as a public and as a business, shame on you, because there's going to be no opportunity after. Get it in now. That's all. Thank you. Good job, everybody. And so we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.